Greetings and welcome to the Hills of Steel 1 Tank Breakdown series. I'm your host Andrew and we're back with a new tank in the series. This time we're going to be taking a look at the flamethrower tank Phoenix. Phoenix leans a little bit more towards the traditional tank sense, and with the stats that you can see on screen, although we have him up to level 11, the engine is incredibly good, the armor is very good, and the gun is strong as well. So, this is going to make for some very interesting gameplay once we get into it. Of course, there are a number of other things about it that we're going to do different. This time, we're actually going to be using the Phoenix Circular Saw. This does not mean that you have to play that, you can try many different variations for your playstyle. The reason why we're taking Circular Saw is because with Phoenix and the Flamethrower, we want to get up close and do a lot of damage, and the Circular Saw helps do more of that. Of course, there are a number of skins, and we're definitely going to be using the Inferno one for the Flamethrower. Also, don't forget that you can customize your driver now, so spice that up as well to give it a little extra kick. Let's now jump into some action and see Phoenix on Midsummer Siege. The thing to note, as we said, Phoenix is very fast, both forward and backward. This is both good and bad in a sense. It means that you can quickly get across the terrain, but as you're traversing across smaller hills, you can end up finding yourself in awkward situations as you flip about. The attack, the Flamethrower, as you can see when tapped, does little spurts of fire, but when held, does an increased range and amount of damage. The Flamethrower, even though we are leveled up to 11, is still pretty strong at the lower levels, so this is a fairly straightforward tank to play. You can notice here that as we bounce across the terrain, we end up getting ourselves in a little awkward spot because we move so fast that when we hit the little bumps, the tank goes off balance a little bit, but it's easily recoverable. You'll also notice that we don't take too much damage. This is both because we are leveled up to level 11, but in general Phoenix is able to take a lot more hits than some of the other smaller tanks. That paired up with a lot of damage from the Flamethrower means that when you do get Phoenix leveled up, you're able to push through these hills very quickly. As long as you're careful of balancing the tank right, you'll be able to push forward, kill the tanks, and very quickly end up at the boss, as you can see that we're doing right now. The same thing for the bosses. With Phoenix we're able to push quickly in, and with the Circular Saw and the damage from our Flamethrower, do an incredible amount of damage and take the boss down quickly. There are a number of things to take into consideration when playing Phoenix. Yes, very quick and unbalanced, but the other thing as well is the actual Flamethrower itself as well. You'll notice that when we fire the Flamethrower, it's going in a straight line. When we're up close to the other tanks, it doesn't really matter because we're hitting them directly in the face. But if we're not that close, or if we're sitting on a little bit of a hill, it may prove a little bit trickier. Because the Flamethrower only goes in a straight line, if we're sitting on a hill and firing upwards, as you can see on screen, we're missing the tank enemy completely. The same thing can be said for if we're sitting on a hill downwards, we'll fire straight into the ground as well. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're on a hill and firing like that above the others, you might leave yourself in a bad position because it gives especially missile tanks the chance to damage you. So this is why in most cases we want to just drive right in, do a lot of damage with the Flamethrower and the Circular Saw to take them down. Because Phoenix can take the hit, we're not so worried about that. It also makes for some pretty crazy gameplay when you do this as well. So with Phoenix, it's a very easy tank to play. You move very quickly across the terrain, do a lot of damage with the Flamethrower, and then pair it up with the attachment that you prefer. You don't have to use the Circular Saw. You don't actually have to use the Rapid Reload either, so if you want to go for more survivability, maybe a barrier. Of course, we all know that Airstrike is very good as well. So, it all depends on your personal preference. There's one other thing to note about Phoenix. Let's now go take a look at Phoenix in some PvP 2v2. You'll notice that when we start this game off, we're actually a lot quicker than our teammate, and a lot quicker than the enemies as well, so we end up meeting them in the middle very quickly, and it puts us at a disadvantage. Also, as we stated, when you move in too quickly, we've kind of lost balance, which means that we ended up getting stuck, taking all the hits from the airstrike, as well as damage from the enemies. So this is something to be careful of whenever you're charging into enemies, particularly in the PvP modes. Let's now jump back into some PvE action. We've headed over to the jungle, so that we can show Phoenix against both land and air units. In most cases you would think that the flamethrower would only be good against land units, but because of the amount of damage and the range, particularly of that level 11 Phoenix, means that we have no worries about the air units at all. Of course, being on a hill aiming upwards into the sky helps a lot as well. But with our damage and our speed, again, we have no issues. The only thing to worry about with Phoenix in this kind of map is that because there's so many hills, and with our speed, we need to be careful traversing across them so we don't end up flipping ourselves and putting ourselves in a bad position. And also, as we mentioned earlier, with using the hills, we want to ensure that our flamethrower is positioned correctly so that we can do a lot of damage with it. So, when playing Phoenix, the key things to remember are, you're fast, very fast, so be careful when going across the terrain. Your weapon is incredibly strong, but you're also quite tanky, so don't be afraid to get aggressive and push into tanks to try and do as much damage as you can. The attachments are up to you. You can go for more survivability, more damage, or whatever suits your playstyle. Other than that, Phoenix is a fairly straightforward tank. You run and gun, or flame in this case. This concludes our look at Phoenix in the Hills of Steel 1 Tank Breakdown series. Don't forget to like and subscribe, follow our social medias to keep up to date with all the content, as well as join our Discord so that you can see other fan art, interact with other players, amongst other things. If you have any hints or tips on how you play Phoenix, don't forget to leave them in a comment below for new players or for other people that are interested in playing Phoenix that haven't done so before. This tank is a lot of fun and will end up for some crazy gameplay, so make sure you check it out. Until the next time, have fun, and we will see you on the hills.